And could it be that somebody's deliverance is in your mouth? Hebrews 10:25 says, not forsaking the assembly of ourselves together, as the manner of some is, but exhorting one another, as ye see the day approaching. Coming to church is an outward indication of an inward condition. It provides an opportunity of reciprocal encouragement, strengthening, and help that we need. Colossians chapter 3, verses 12 through 16 tells us to dress up in the bowels of mercy, heartfelt compassion, for we all have deficiencies, flaws, and weaknesses that we need forgiveness and forbearance for. Charity is love, and called the bond of perfectness. Love is the crowning grace, completing the list of virtues required for spiritual maturity. When believers are forbearing and forgiving and loving towards one another, when peace reigns amongst God's people, then the church is fertile soil for the blessing produced by the word of Christ. In the second verse, we notice a pool located by the sheep gate, the place of sacrifice. The name of the pool is called in the Hebrew tongue Bethesda, house of mercy. This pool has 5 porches, and it's interesting to note that 5 is the number of grace. And grace is God giving you good things that you don't deserve. Look at your neighbor and tell him, grace is God giving you good things that you don't deserve. So the place of sacrifice is located directly to the place of miracles. In verse 3, we get a description of the occupants of this pool. They were blind, unable to discern the right hand from the left hand. Don't worry, I'm coming. Divested of faculty for every motion, and paralysis, incompetent to move the limbs or the organs of the soul. In other words, you had a group of people who were dependent on others for movement. They were there waiting for the moving of the waters. For it was legendary that every year an angel at a certain season would come into the pool, trouble the water. Then whoever stepped in first after the troubling of the water was made whole, regardless of their condition. In the 5th verse, it tells us that a certain man was there, which had an infirmity 38 years. Note, he had this condition before Jesus was born. He had it for almost as long as the children of Israel were in the wilderness. And there are many people like the man in our text, lying at Bethesda, paralyzed by sin, evil habits, and worldliness. Some are dumb who babble in the world and never speak to God. Some are deaf who hear the latest sports and stock market games, yet cannot hear the offers of God. Look at your neighbor and say, are you like that? Note, up to this point, nothing including the pool could help this man. He heard 38 years of testimony. He was helpless and has to rely on others for movement. And that is the case of many who are dependent economically, socially, spiritually. Their relationship with God is a vicarious one. They see God through the eyes of their spouse, their mother, their grandfather, or their pastor. In the 6th verse, When Jesus saw him lie and knew that he had now been a long time in that case, he said unto him, do you want to be made whole? Some say that that's a stupid question. I'm sure somebody would have responded, do you think this is fun? Do you think I enjoy this? It's a stupid question, but I beg to differ. No, 38 years is a long time to have a condition. And most of us can't tolerate one night. But I'm sure that the man in our text had learned to live with his paralysis. Look at your neighbor, take him by the hand, shake it like you're going to shake it off, and say, neighbor, what have you learned to live with that you know is not God's will for you to have? Is it an unsaved relationship? Is it a nasty attitude? Is it hatred in your heart for your brother or sister? Is it a nasty disposition? Is it laziness? Is it a get-over spirit? Is it a vice or lustful appetite? What is it that you have learned to live with that you know is not God's will for you to have? Note, this condition stripped him of his career. It stripped him of his strength. It stripped him of his dignity and relationships. But the one thing that I like, Bishop Ellis, about this guy in the text, although he was disappointed and I'm sure frustrated, he stayed. Lord have mercy. If we're ever going to be delivered and walk in our destiny, we have to remain focused and stay in the place where help can be found. Do you want to be made whole? I believe that Jesus was simply telling him that he was not whole. Hello, somebody. Look at the text. He was surrounded by abnormalities. I believe that it would be safe to conclude that being there for so long changed his view of what was normal. If you grow up in a house where the husband and wife are always arguing and fighting and cussing each other out, you would think that that kind of relationship is normal. If you're in the environment that you grew up in was an atmosphere of drugs, murder, and prostitution, you would think that that was normal. If you grow up in a church where everybody's a bishop